Welcome to Nugget 350 with Steve and Dana Groman. We are loading up on these nuggets.
Well, they are coming along.
If you haven't watched all of them, you need to go back and do so.
Yes, they're all really good.
They are, and there's a whole lot of information out there.
There is.
We are continuing at COSI, the Science Museum in Columbus, Ohio. There is so much to see and do there. So much of it is evolutionary, some of it isn't, but you just have to put on your thinking cap and pay attention when you're at places like this. And we found this display, they called it Time Tree. And you've probably seen slices of big redwoods or big trees, and they have dates on it of about fascinating things that occurred at different times when this tree was growing to give you an idea of how long that tree has been around.
Yes, and the whole dendrochronology is somewhat accurate, but there can be some serious goofs too. It's not as accurate as they say. Sometimes trees actually produce 2 in 1 year or more, depending on the weather.
It's just their best guess, and
Right.
It's probably fairly close.
What's 100 years when you're talking about 4,000?
True. We have nuggets on the bristlecone pines, and you'll want to go back and look at those, and that's the trees that he's referring to that are as old as the time of Noah's flood.
Correct.
But today we're talking about this tree that was a coastal redwood, and it was blown over in a windstorm in 2002. And at COSI, they counted 893 rings in this slice that they were given. The slice was taken from 14 feet up the tree, and the tree may have taken anywhere from 20 to 200 years to grow that tall. You can see that at least 40 years of rings are missing from the tree's center, and they're guesstimating that this tree was 950 to 1150 years old when it died. What a shame that it got blown over.
Well,
That
it's
happens.
true, but that's a good example. Between 20 and 200, that's a pretty big span.
Yes, it is. It's still cool. And we were sitting out by a fire the other night and talking about the trees that are on our property, how tall they are and how much they must weigh.
They are heavy.
They're tons and tons. They just stand there so stoic and beautiful.
When we cut one down, they're heavy just cutting it up in logs and carrying them.
Yeah, you have to cut them smaller and smaller, the bigger and bigger, because the weight is just incredible.
Right, it is amazing.
And they hit
And
the
that's not-
ground, it's
Yeah,
kaboom.
with a thud, but that's not even the limbs and leaves and all the heavy parts of the tree.
As you can see, they have markers on different parts of this slice of tree, and some of them were quite interesting, and we wanted to go over them with you today. In 1460, the Book of Hours gives medieval Europeans instructions on prayers for each hour of the day. Hours are of variable length and correspond to night, lightning, dawn, morning, midday, afternoon, sunset, and end of day. What do you find interesting about that?
It's interesting that they actually have the sign that mentions the word prayer.
And that prayer is important.
It's important, but it's good that they have that on there.
This one said 1510, Leonardo da Vinci's studies of river channel erosion and marine fossils on mountaintops provide the first hints that the Earth may be very old indeed. It has been a recent idea and concept that started coming up that the Earth was old. That
Correct.
For thousands and thousands of years, people believed the true creation account.
Even if they didn't believe the Bible, there was hand-me-down information, just like people of today. They may not know that it comes from the Bible, but that's exactly where it did come from.
We have also done nuggets on Leonardo da Vinci and his drawings on trees and the weights of branches, as we just mentioned. He wasn't just the painter that most people think of. He was also a scientist of sorts and very interested in anatomy of plant life. In 1582, to realign the European calendar, Pope Gregory deletes 11 days from October. October 4th was followed by October 15th.
Well, what if you had a birthday on the 8th?
Well, I guess you didn't get that old that year. That would help for some. Some females probably enjoyed that year.
Yeah, buddy.
We want to point out, and it's kind of something, it's a rabbit trail you can go down, that the calendar is not necessarily accurate and that it has been messed with by the Catholic Church over the years.
A few times, actually, yes.
And this is a
Yes.
good example of
Right.
that. 1583, Galileo discovers the principles of the pendulum clock. Again, we think of Galileo with astronomy. He talks about the principles of the pendulum clock. Time, calendars, all of this is basically a recent
It was a recent phenomenon.
concept
Few
of
hundred years
things
is
that
all.
people have started using before it.
They did like the Bible says, the sun, moon, and stars are there for times and for seasons, for days and years.
That's why some indigenous people truly don't know how old they are, because it's not of any importance to them. A lot of times there's just speculation on how old some people are. We went to a clock museum in Bristol, Connecticut a few weeks ago. We will be doing a Saturday travel and history tip. That was fascinating. 1595, William Shakespeare writes his famous sonnets, including Sonnet 12, When I Do Count the Clock That Tells the Time. Again, it was this time frame when clocks became popular.
Right.
Not everybody was walking around with a watch. They may have kept a sundial, and they did the different things to measure the seasons.
By the season, by the sun.
They were
even
agrarian.
Time with the clock. Even if they didn't have numbers 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, they still would pay attention to where it is.
1761, English inventor John Harrison completes H4, the clock that makes it possible to determine longitude at sea. We just, at least I do, think these ideas and concepts and scientific ideas have been around for centuries.
Right.
And it's only been a few centuries and not long, long times. 1797, African-American inventor Benjamin Banneker becomes the first American to build a working clock. That's not all that long ago.
No.
The United States was already a nation. 1799, Ludwig van Beethoven composes Allegro in G major for the newly invented musical clock. 1807, American Eli Terry builds the first clock suitable for mass production. 1852, the Royal Observatory in Greenwich begins issuing time data via telegraph, thereby establishing Greenwich Mean Time.
It is amazing when you think about it.
And in 1859, Big Ben, the bell for the world's most famous clock, chimes over London for the first time.
Yeah, a lot of people, that's their great-grandparents' time frame.
Certainly great-great-grandparents.
Oh, absolutely.
1862, Lord Kelvin uses temperature data to estimate the Earth's age at no more than 98 million years old. Okay, I want to point out here that as they have increased with this clock and the time, they have now moved into wanting to make the Earth older.
Older and older and older. They keep pushing it out.
To refute what the Bible is saying.
And they do the same thing with the so-called universe as they describe it. They keep moving that time around.
1895, Henry Becquerel discovers radioactivity, nature's own timepiece.
That's not that long ago.
1905, old Einstein, the guy that everyone thinks is so smart, and we all know that someone asked him,
what's it like being the smartest man in the world?
And he said, I don't know, you'd have to ask Nikola Tesla.
That's funny.
That's probably true.
Yeah.
1905, Einstein shows that absolute time does not exist. 1929, astronomer Edwin Hubble measures the expansion of the universe and estimates an age of 2 billion years.
Yeah, there you go.
And
that's kind of what I was talking about, even the universe. Yeah.
This is the Hubble that they have named the Hubble telescope after, and we've been to Marshfield, Missouri, where Hubble was born. 1932, physicist Carl Anderson discovers antimatter, which is matter traveling backwards in time. I don't think so. I think, Carl, you're making some stuff up.
I wonder how you discovered it.
How do you discover something that's going backwards that you can't even see?
That doesn't exist.
They put it on a plaque and people believe it. That's the problem. 1949, scientists at the National Institute of Standards announced the creation of the world's first atomic clock. Now, all these clocks are based on the sky clock that God put there. That is the accurate one.
We actually saw that clock.
Then there's in 1989, the Earth's oldest rocks from Great Slave Lake in Canada are dated at 4 billion years old. I just don't understand why they can't say what's going on in 1989. Why does it have to have this evolutionary slant? There are so many things that happened in 1949 and 1972 and 1989. They have to reinforce evolution. And then they've got in 1997, a team led by Dr. Wendy Friedman uses images from the Hubble Space Telescope to date the universe at 13 billion years old. And that's when it took the big change.
They move it all around, but the interesting thing is Edwin Hubble, who invented the Hubble Space Telescope, said it's only 2 billion.
And we have done a nugget on Edwin Hubble also. You'll just want to go back and watch our nuggets. There's so many, and they are so filled with all kinds of great information. For now, we're out of time.
Wrap this one up. We're out of time. What is time? Oh, that's another topic.
Don't get me going on time. Sometimes time makes me sad. That's why when all this is done, there will be no more time. If you appreciate these videos, partner with us on a monthly or a one-time basis. The links are in the description below. If you appreciate our content, tell others and repost on your social platforms. Thank you.